Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We take your sources, unpack them, and hopefully bring some clarity.
Yeah, looking forward to this one.
Today, we're diving into something pretty unique. It's part art history, part counterculture story, and, believe it or not, part high finance. We're talking about American functional glass art.
That's right. Known mostly to collectors as Heady glass.
Exactly.
And it's quite a story. We're using excerpts today from The Evolution of American Heady Glass by Nugnotes. And what you find is this journey that really mirrors huge cultural shifts, legal shifts in America over like the last 40 years. It's fascinating.
Our mission here is to trace this niche craft all the way from, well, basically the back of a VW bus following the Grateful Dead.
Literally.
Through some pretty devastating federal raids, and then somehow emerging into museum recognition, pieces selling for, six figures. It's a wild ride for any art form.
And I think what's really key for you, the listener, to grasp is this isn't just about pretty objects. It's really a case study. It shows how legality, or the lack of legality sometimes, interacts with technology and this underground culture, how they all have to adapt just to survive and create a market, often under like intense pressure.
Okay, let's get into it then. Starting right at the beginning, the origin flame era back in the 1980s. But maybe first we should quickly define what we mean by Heady glass.
Yeah, good call. That's essential context. So when we talk about Heady glass, it's two things, really. First, it's functional glass art, meaning it's designed for cannabis use pipes, water pipes, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Second, though, Heady signifies a certain level of complexity, originality, artistry. It's the big difference between, say, a simple mass-produced spoon pipe you see everywhere and a complex sculptural piece that's clearly a signature work, maybe took weeks to make.
Gotcha. And the person who really kicked that off, who defined that initial shift, was Bob Snodgrass.
Snodgrass, absolutely. He's the pioneer, no question. He basically embedded this craft right into American cannabis folklore, traveling with the Grateful Dead, working with a torch out of his van.
Mobile torch work, you called it.
Exactly. And he wasn't just using any glass. He worked with borosilicate boro, which is much tougher, handles heat shock way better. And crucially, he pioneered color-changing glass. He figured out how to trap fumes of silver, sometimes gold, inside the glass matrix.
So the pipe changes color as you use it.
Yeah, based on heat and buildup and the light. It was revolutionary at the time, made the pieces feel alive, almost magical.
And that whole vibe on the road, following the dead, this functional but artistic object, it really cemented the craft's roots in that counterculture, right? As something rebellious, personal.
Definitely. It wasn't coming out of art schools. It was like folk art for a specific community created right there on the scene.
And that energy that inspired the next wave.
For sure. Especially the crew that formed out in Eugene, Oregon. They were hugely influential. They took what Snodgrass started, this kind of nomadic craft, and began pushing the boundaries, experimenting with bigger forms, more complex techniques.
Okay, so that leads us into the 90s, and this shift you call Glasgow's Gallery.
Right. This is where you start seeing these functional pieces demand respect, almost like fine art. Artists like Jerome Baker, Jason Lee, they started making these really sculptural borosilicate pieces, moving way beyond the simple spoon pipe.
These were signature works with like a story or a theme.
Yeah, exactly. They had real narrative weight. And you saw this change even in the head shops. They started transforming from just purely utilitarian stores into, well, you could honestly call them mini galleries.
Curating the work.
Totally. They'd have these expensive, intricate pieces displayed prominently. Owning a Jerome Baker wasn't just about function anymore. It was a statement. Showed you were, in the know, part of that underground culture. And this actually laid the groundwork for the collector market later on. Provenance started to matter even then.
It sounds like things were really taking off, heading towards maybe mainstream legitimacy.
It seemed that way.
But that visibility, ironically, it made them a target. Which brings us to a really sharp turn. Operation Pipe Dreams, 2003.
Yeah. Oof. Operation Pipe Dreams, that was the hammer coming down. Abrupt, violent, really, in terms of its impact on the movement. It was this huge, coordinated federal operation nationwide.
Targeting who specifically?
Distributors, manufacturers, studios, even individual artists. The feds, using powers expanded under the Patriot Act, basically moved to criminalize the making and selling of this functional glass art.
And the big headline, the one everyone remembers from that time, was the arrest of Tommy Chong.
Absolutely. Chong's arrest was national news. It sent this incredibly chilling message across the community and frankly across the country. It conflated glass art with serious crime, fueled this kind of moral panic.
Devastating for the artists, I imagine.
Oh, completely. Studios raided, assets seized, people facing serious charges, careers just shattered overnight. The whole scene was forced back into the shadows, deep underground.
So for the artists who managed to avoid arrest or seizure, what happened then? Did they just stop making pipes?
A lot of them had to, yeah. They retreated, went back to basements, back rooms. Some started making, non-functional stuff like pendants or marbles just to keep working glass. Or they drastically simplified their functional work to try and fly under the radar.
So the industry just vanished,
It went completely underground for several years, and this created a huge void in the market.
and nature abhors a vacuum, right?
Yeah.
Something always fills the void.
Precisely. While American artists were tied up with legal battles, fear, trying to recover seized equipment, Chinese manufacturers saw the opening. The demand hadn't gone away.
So they jumped in.
They flooded the U.S. market with mass-produced, super cheap glass pipes. Prices just plummeted. Quality, forget about it. It eroded incredibly fast. And for collectors, or even just regular buyers, the term handmade suddenly lost almost all its meaning. It became really hard to tell what was what.
Wow. So if you were an American glass artist in, say, 2006 or 2007, you survived the federal raids only to find yourself trying to compete with rock-bottom prices on imitation stuff.
Exactly. It was this brutal economic reality check. It forced the kind of filtering, The really serious artists, the innovators, they had to double down on originality and complexity because they just couldn't compete on price.
A tough period.
A really tough period. But then the thing that really saved the high-end scene, it didn't come from policy changes. It came from technology, a radical shift in how people were consuming cannabis, starting around 2010.
Okay, this is where things get really interesting on the technical side.
Yeah.
You're talking about the dab revolution.
The dab revolution, yeah. The rise of cannabis, concentrates, butane hash oil, BHO, waxes, shatters, stuff like that, it completely reignited the craft.
How so? What changed?
Well, the physics changed. Concentrates are potent. You don't combust them in a bowl like flour. You vaporize a small amount, usually on a hot surface. So you need precision. The glass had to evolve from just being a tool for smoking to being like a performance instrument designed for efficient vaporization.
Form follows function again. So what were those key changes in the glass itself?
Huge specialization. Early on, people used these kind of clunky titanium swings or pads to heat the concentrate. Those quickly evolved into much cleaner, more refined quartz nails or bangers. Quartz has great heat retention, tastes way better.
Okay, so the heating element changed. What about the pipes?
They became these intricate machines. We saw the rise of what are called functional rigs. They were all about managing airflow, cooling the vapor instantly, preventing water splashback. Complexity exploded.
You mentioned recyclers, diffusers in the source. Can you give us the quick physics on why those became so important for listeners who might not know?
Sure. So it's basically about cooling and filtering the vapor efficiently. A diffuser, it breaks the vapor stream into lots of tiny bubbles as it goes through the water. More bubbles mean more surface area, which cools the vapor down super fast.
Okay.
A recycler takes it a step further. It creates this continuous loop where the water and vapor travel together through multiple chambers, constantly churning. This cools it even more, prevents you from accidentally inhaling water, and people felt it preserved the flavor better.
So these weren't just pipes anymore.
Not at all. Rigs by innovators like Ham, Quave, Mothership. They were like kinetic sculptures. You watched them work. It was mechanical art designed for a specific high-performance task.
And that complexity, that artistry, it found a whole new audience, right? Thanks to social media.
Oh, completely. The social media era, especially Instagram, it was another revolution, this time in distribution and visibility.
How did that change things for the artists?
Massively. Artists could suddenly bypass the old gatekeepers, the head shops, the trade shows, the galleries. They could build huge followings directly, control their own story, their own brand.
Showing off these complex pieces.
Exactly. Pieces like the Toro macros or Mothership's fab eggs, these very specific signature designs, they went viral instantly. People shared pictures, videos of the function.
And collecting became this digital thing.
Totally digital and global. You had this drop culture emerge. An artist would announce a new piece or a small batch online, and collectors from all over the world would be refreshing their feed, trying to snag it within seconds.
Wow.
And things like hashtags, clear photos, video proof of function that became the new way to establish provenance, to authenticate a piece, essential for the secondary market.
So you have this rising complexity, incredible new visibility, and the background hum of cannabis legalization getting louder and louder.
Yeah, it all converged. That led directly into what the Nug Notes source calls the Golden Age, mid-2010s roughly.
And this is when the functional rigs became serious status symbols. And the money just poured in.
Exploded. Absolutely exploded financially. We're talking prices that, yes, sound kind of insane for something that's technically functional.
Like, what are we talking price-wise?
Our source points to verified pieces from top artists like Mothership, Quave, regularly hitting high five-figure prices, $50K, $60K, $70,000
For a rig.
for a rig. And then the really legendary collaborations or iconic unique pieces like the Mothership Fab Egg collab or certain Sagan pieces with his signature moon marbles, those actually broke six figures, sold for over $100,000.
Incredible.
Yeah. This was the moment where torchwork, glass blowing, truly became an asset class. Function met finance. And provenance became everything. Every signature, every photo, every documented sale mattered because that history directly impacted the resale value. It wasn't just art anymore. It was like verifiable liquid wealth for some people.
It sounded like it was just going to keep climbing forever. An unstoppable boom.
But yeah, every boom seems to find its ceiling right. And this one did too. Which brings us to section 4, the market correction, and this kind of paradox of legitimacy we see today.
What cooled things down? What stopped the golden age?
It hit a saturation point probably around 2017, 2018. A few things happened at once. Yes, there were more copycats, cheaper imports flooding the lower end again, but the really big disruption came from outside the glass world.
Technology again.
Technology again. Specifically, new, super portable, easy-to-use vaporization tech. Think devices like the PAX or the Puffco Peak.
Ah, okay. Why were those specific types of vaporizers such a threat to the high-end glass market?
Well, they delivered on things that a big, complex, expensive glass rig just couldn't. Mainly portability, discretion, and really consistent dosing. Especially as legal markets opened up, with dispensaries selling pre-filled cartridges.
Convenience became key.
Exactly. Consumers, especially newer ones, started favoring these sleek, compliant, easy-to-use devices. $1,000 intricate glass rig, no matter how beautiful, started to seem kind of cumbersome, less practical for everyday use in this new, regulated, and frankly, heavily taxed environment.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sounds like a perfect storm brewing for the market.
It really was, and it led to this pretty dramatic market bifurcation, a split. The middle market, the artists making really nice pieces in the, say, $1,000 to $5,000 range, that segment pretty much collapsed.
Why them specifically?
They got squeezed, they couldn't compete with the cheap imports flooding the market below them, and they didn't have the established name recognition or documented grail status of the absolute top-tier artists above them. So only the highest end, the pieces with that verified history, unique artistry, really held on to their value.
So where does that leave the market now, financially? Is the six-figure piece a thing of the past?
Those original six-figure grails, they still exist and hold value, but purely based on that documented legacy. For new, contemporary, high-end work being made today, the source suggests the top end of the market generally caps out more around the $10,000 to $13,000 mark. The absolute feeding frenzy is over. It's a more sober, knowledgeable collector base now.
Okay, but here's the twist, the paradox you mentioned. Just as the market was cooling down financially, the art form itself started getting unprecedented cultural legitimacy in the last few years, right? The 2020s.
Absolutely. We're kind of in the art restored era now. Borosilicate, flamework, functional glass art is finally being recognized by major institutions. Museums, proper fine art galleries, artist residencies, they're taking it seriously as a legitimate modern craft.
Seeing exhibitions with rigs next to traditional sculptures.
Exactly. The torch is finally being seen not just as a tool for paraphernalia, but as a tool for contemporary art, which is huge.
That sounds like a definite win for the artists, for the culture. But you argue there's a catch. That legalization itself, paradoxically, put a new kind of strain on the scene.
It's this weird friction, yeah. So while the art was gaining legitimacy, the financial ecosystem that fueled the golden age changed dramatically. Think about it. A lot of that boom money came from the gray market, largely untaxed.
Right.
Now, in the regulated cannabis industry, that capital is being diverted. Businesses and even collectors have huge costs. Taxes, licensing fees, compliance burdens. That shrinks the overall pool of money available for collectors to spend on super high-end glass. The market today is smaller, maybe, but definitely more focused, more sophisticated. It's about genuine art historical value now, not just hype.
So that brings us to today's scene, which you call the slow burn.
Yeah, the slow burn. The crazy hype has cooled, but the flame is still burning steady. It's condensed, sharpened.
How does that look on the ground?
The elite artists who survive, they're relying more on private commissions, direct relationships with serious collectors,
Well,
limited online drops to their dedicated following. But maybe the most interesting thing for the real purists is this resurgence of interest in things like hash rosin,
which is a type of concentrate.
a very pure solventless concentrate that you typically consume at lower temperatures. And guess what? It demands really well-made, function-first rigs to get the best flavor. So it's kind of reconnecting the craft back to its original purpose. High performance, optimal function. The art survived the raids, it survived the market crash, and now it's learning to navigate regulation.
It really is an incredible story. A full life cycle. From Bob Snodgrass, his van, those color-changing pipes, through the shock of federal raids, the explosion to six-figure prices, and now pieces sitting in museum collections. It's just a testament to artistic resilience, isn't it? Adapting under all that pressure.
It really is the ultimate story of underground innovation making its way somehow.
So we'll leave you, the listener, with a final thought to chew on after this deep dive. Consider this tension. In a world where heady glass art is finally getting its due recognition from museums, galleries, even high finance, can that raw, subversive counterculture spirit, the spirit that literally defined its origins back in the 80s, can that truly survive? Can it survive the weight of provenance, auction records, government compliance costs, and the need for verified legacy?
When the underground becomes validated by the mainstream, what's left to rebel against? That tension between art and asset, rebellion and regulation, that feels like the defining question for the future of this craft. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
We'll catch you on the next one.